Hey guys, Steph Culbertson, and I want to talk a little bit about pulling the slack on the deadlift. When a lot of people first start deadlifting, they have a tendency to yank the bar. I think there's something in our minds that tells us if we yank the bar really fast, it's kind of like getting a running start before a big jump. But what I think it's actually more akin to is getting a head start before running into a nearly immovable wall. So even after someone is lifting for a while, they start to learn this concept of pulling the slack. That phrase is pretty ubiquitous, at least within powerlifting, of this concept of what is basically just building tension between yourself and the bar. I think that phrasing might make it difficult to understand that for some people, like myself. I think we can also throw the wedge into that conversation as far as an often used term to describe a feeling in the deadlift. I think I wanted things to be explained to me more plainly than using a word that was a cue of a feeling I was supposed to feel. Now, obviously, pulling the slack and wedging in works for lots and lots of people. But let's talk about why the slack pull is so important. It seems intuitive that if we're going to unrack a bench press, we don't want to throw our hands up really fast and unrack the bar. We're going to grab the bar, we're going to create some tension and slowly push it out of the rack. Maybe as we get a little more advanced, we'll create that tension and then explosively pull it out of the rack. We'll talk about that later. If we don't pull the slack, or if we don't create as much tension as we can between our arms and the bar and just explosively pull, we're going to run into that nearly immovable wall really fast, and what tends to happen is our hips will rise up. And in order to truly express our 1 rep max, we need to hold position in whichever lift it is throughout the entire range of motion. If we lose position because we didn't pull the slack, particularly at higher percentages, we're way more likely to not complete the lift. So another cue we often see in the deadlift is patience. If we pull too explosively and without patience, then our hips will come up and we lose position before the bar even leaves the ground. Let's talk about how we can create that tension between yourself and the bar and how that relates to the balance of being explosive or being patient off the floor. So after we grab the bar, we've already set our brace, we pull against that bar as hard as we can. We are going to rotate our hips down. This is the wedge. We're trying to keep our shoulders in the position they are, and this is effectively creating more tension. This is the pull element of the deadlift. The slack pull is the pull. The rest of it is more like a leg press. At lower percentages, the bar should definitely be coming off the ground because you've created more tension if you're doing it properly. That's not to say you have to be getting the bar off the ground during the wedge or during the rotation every time you warm up, but that is the intention. You are trying to create that much tension to where the bar wants to come off the ground. We're trying to bend the bar, not in the old school cue of bending the bar, but we're literally trying to bend the bar. That's what pulling the slack is. Depending on what type of bar you use and how much weight you have, you may or may not be able to see it, but it is still there. Here's where the balance between explosiveness and patience comes in. If we can create more tension during that wedge or during that rotation of our hips coming down and keeping our shoulders in the same position, we can push harder initially. We've done the slack pull, and now we can do the press. We can push with our legs. But inevitably, no matter how good you are at creating this tension, there's going to be some still there. Otherwise, the bar would come off the ground, even though you're trying to deadlift 100% of your max. We have to be a little bit patient until we know that bar is going to come off the ground. We're pushing with our legs, we're creating as much tension as we can, we're pulling more slack, and when that bar starts moving, we can accelerate and explode. There are definitely some lifters who don't make this a 2-step process. So it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a rotate pulling slack, then a push off the floor. If you can get in good enough position without that rotation, after you grab the bar, you can just slowly apply pressure. Again, just using a little bit more patience to pull the slack out. So to summarize, Pulling the slack is just creating tension between yourself and the bar. It's important because it helps us hold position while initiating the lift, and how much slack you get out of the bar prior to initiating the lift is going to determine how much patience you need or how explosive you can be. So if you struggle with pulling the slack out, or this concept of pulling the slack out, give some of these tips a try. I hope this helps you out. If you found any of this entertaining or informative, feel free to hit like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff.